He pushed her to the edge, frustrating her at every turn, but she refused to break. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Welcome, everyone, to another exciting movie journey with us. Get ready as we bring you the full gist about this popular Nigerian movie filled with morals and hidden lessons. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe because we have plenty of interesting movie goodies coming your way. So, grab your popcorn as I take you through this unforgettable experience. One cool evening, Mike went on a blind date with a beautiful and elegant lady his father had set up for him. However, he wasn't interested in her and offered to pay her off, which she found offensive and rude. Eventually, she agreed to take the money, inputting her account number on his phone. Then, she called Mike's father to inform him that she couldn't date someone like Mike because he was rude and nonchalant. Mike simply stood up and left. Meanwhile, the next morning, Rebecca was confronted by her landlord, who demanded that she pay her overdue rent. She promised to settle it in 2 weeks, but the landlord gave her only 3 days. She kept pleading with him for more time, even flattering him, but he dismissed her, stating that he wanted his money, not her praise, and left angrily. That same day, Mike's father, Chief, visited Mike at his office to confront him about frustrating his efforts to set him up with beautiful women. Mike told Chief that he wasn't ready for another relationship after what he had been through with his ex-wife, Bolu. He assured Chief that when he was ready, he would let him know. Chief, however, insisted that he needed grandchildren to carry on his lineage. Later that evening, while driving home, Mike was on a call with his friend Frank, telling him how his father had set him up on a date. As he drove, he honked aggressively at Rebecca, who was walking on the main road instead of the walkway, while also on a call. She quickly ended her call and began exchanging words with Mike for nearly hitting her with his car. However, Mike insulted her so harshly that she was left speechless. Before walking away, she told him to learn to calm down because his pride was too much. When Mike finally got home, he found his ex-wife, Bolu, waiting outside his house. He asked her what she wanted, and she immediately started apologizing for leaving him. As she moved closer, Mike told her not to touch him and demanded to know her reason for coming. Bolu initially claimed that their daughter, Kimberly, missed him, but Mike, knowing her well, pressed for the real reason. She finally admitted that she was broke and needed money. So the truth was out. Inside his house, Mike called his account manager and instructed him to send money to Bolu's account. As soon as Bolu received the alert, she left. The next day, Rebecca was walking around the estate, looking for potential buyers for her paintings so she could pay her rent. She spotted a white SUV and knocked on its window. Inside was Chief, who listened as she enthusiastically marketed her paintings to him. Amused by her determination, Chief laughed and told her he wasn't in need of a painting, but had a proposition for her. He then invited her into his car to discuss further. The following day, Mike called an agent to send a housekeeper to his home. Unbeknownst to her, Rebecca had been sent to work for him. When she arrived at Mike's compound, she had no idea she would be working for him. When Mike opened the door and saw Rebecca, he immediately felt she looked familiar, but she denied knowing him, as she was desperate for the job. However, Mike eventually recognized her and called the agent, telling them he didn't want her. Rebecca, full of excitement, entered Mike's house and started admiring everything. Annoyed, Mike chased her out, telling her he couldn't work with her. What do you think about Mike's attitude? Was he justified, or was he being too harsh? Let's discuss in the comments. The next day, Frank visited Mike at home, and Mike started telling him about his unexpected encounter with Rebecca, who was supposed to be his housekeeper. He explained how he immediately fired her, and Frank couldn't stop laughing about it. Just then, there was a knock at the door. When Mike went to check, he was shocked to see Rebecca standing there with his clothes from the laundry. Without hesitation, he slammed the door in her face, then reopened it to warn her to stop stalking him and never come near his house again. Frank, curious about what was happening, came to the door, and Mike pointed at Rebecca, telling Frank that she was the same lady he had just been talking about. Mike then grabbed his clothes from her and went inside. Rebecca turned to Frank and asked him to tell Mike to take things easy. Frank simply told her that Mike wasn't the kind of person to change so easily. They said their goodbyes, and Rebecca left. A few days later, Rebecca managed to pay part of her rent, but her landlord was unhappy that the money wasn't complete. To appease him, she handed him a nylon bag filled with refreshments for his children and promised to pay the balance soon. Her landlord, though still displeased, thanked her for the gift. One evening, Mike and Frank went to a restaurant for drinks, and Mike started complaining about how Rebecca was stalking him. He even joked that if he saw her again, he would have her arrested. Frank, amused as always, reminded Mike of what Rebecca had said the night she returned his clothes, that he needed to learn to be calm. Changing the topic, Mike told Frank about his upcoming business trip to Abuja. The next day, Chief employed Rebecca as a staff member in his company, where both Frank and Mike also worked. Chief assigned Frank to give Rebecca a tour of the company, and they left his office together. Later, Frank called Mike, telling him there was an important update at the company and that he needed to come see it for himself. A few days later, Mike returned from his trip and asked Frank about the update. Just as Frank was about to explain, Rebecca walked in, smiling, and confidently introduced herself to Mike as his new assistant. Mike was shocked and immediately fired her on the spot before storming off to confront his father. In his father's office, Mike furiously asked why he had hired Rebecca. He accused her of stalking him and insisted that he didn't want to work with her. However, his father made it clear that he wouldn't stop Rebecca from working at the company. Frustrated, Mike stormed out. Back in his office, Mike confronted Rebecca, accusing her once again of stalking him. Rebecca, smiling, denied the accusation. Annoyed, Mike snapped at her to stop smiling and ordered her to get out of his office. Because of his dislike for Rebecca, Mike decided to be petty and make her work experience miserable. The next day, Rebecca was supposed to accompany Mike to a meeting in his car, but instead, he coldly told her to take public transport. Stunned, Rebecca said nothing. Hours later, when Mike returned to the office, Rebecca walked in looking completely exhausted. Without missing a beat, Mike smirked and told her she looked terrible and that she smelled bad. Rebecca felt insulted, but chose to remain silent. Mike then ordered her to write a report on the meeting. Rebecca tried to explain that by the time she got there, the meeting was already over and she had no details to report. But Mike, ignoring her, gave her 10 minutes to bring the report to his office and dismissed her. With Frank's help, Rebecca managed to put together a report. When she submitted it to Mike, he took one look at it and told her it was wrong, making her feel like she had wasted her time. He then ordered her to redo it. Standing there, Rebecca imagined strangling Mike in frustration. However, she snapped back to reality and left his office. Despite how exhausted she was, Rebecca went ahead and reworked the report. When she submitted it again, Mike rejected it once more and told her to redo it yet again. This time, he demanded it first thing the next morning before leaving the office, leaving Rebecca frustrated and in tears. It seemed like Mike was determined to push Rebecca to the point of resignation. What do you think? Was Mike being unnecessarily cruel, or was he justified in his actions? Let's discuss in the comments. Later that night, Mike went to have a drink with Frank, and Frank begged him to stop being hard on Rebecca. But Mike told Frank that the only way he would leave Rebecca alone was if she submitted her resignation letter. He still believed she had been sent to stalk him. Meanwhile, Rebecca was still at the office, working on the report. She eventually fell asleep there until the next morning. The next morning, Frank went to Mike's office to ask about Rebecca. Mike was about to rejoice, thinking she had quit, but to his surprise, Rebecca walked in to submit the report. She spoke professionally, like a diligent staff member, despite her stressful night. Frank then noticed that Rebecca was still wearing the same clothes from the previous day. When he asked about it, Rebecca explained that she had been working all night and slept off in the office. Frank advised her to go home, rest, and resume work the next day, but Mike refused and insisted that she join him and Frank for a meeting. After Rebecca left, Frank told Mike that they could handle the meeting without her, but Mike ignored him. Rebecca went to her office, took her medication, and left. While Frank was briefing Rebecca about the meeting in Mike's office, Mike started wondering why Rebecca hadn't broken down yet. He believed everyone had a breaking point and was determined to frustrate her further. Later that day, in Mike's office, Rebecca was having a fun time with Frank and Chief until Mike walked in and cut the fun short. At the close of work, Rebecca tried ordering a ride, but all the drivers declined. To her surprise, Mike offered to take her home. At first, she was shocked, but eventually got into his car. The next day, Rebecca brought Mike a piece of cake as a gift from a colleague's birthday celebration at the office. While she was at his house, Bolu arrived, walking in confidently. She told Mike that Kimberly missed him again, but Mike bluntly told her that he was not Kimberly's father. He warned Bolu to stop coming to his house and told her to leave. Rebecca witnessed everything and, concerned, asked Mike if he was okay. But instead of answering, Mike told her to leave his house as well. That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep as she kept thinking about what she had seen at Mike's house. The next day, Rebecca went to Chief's office and told him that she could no longer continue acting just to get Mike's attention, especially after witnessing what happened at his house. When Rebecca returned to her office, she was startled to see Mike there. He asked her where she had been, and Rebecca, caught off guard, began to stammer. Mike then told her that she would be joining him for a meeting and left. In the car, Mike unexpectedly apologized to Rebecca for misjudging her and treating her badly. He also acknowledged the good qualities she had in dealing with people. Rebecca thanked him and got out of the car. That moment marked the beginning of their friendship. A few days later, Rebecca went to Mike's house to work on some office tasks, and the atmosphere between them grew tense. Even at the office, they spent more time together, and Chief noticed this, feeling happy about it. What do you think about Mike's change of attitude? Do you think Rebecca should trust him, or is he just feeling guilty? Let's discuss. One day, while at Mike's house, Rebecca asked him about his relationship with Bolu. Mike then opened up about how he had married Bolu and they had a daughter together. However, when their child fell sick, they ran some tests and discovered that Kimberly wasn't actually his daughter. He was deeply hurt and decided to never get close to any woman again. Rebecca felt bad for him and encouraged him to spend time with Kimberly, even though she wasn't his biological child. As they talked, Rebecca sat on Mike's thighs and playfully gave him pecks on his cheek and forehead. Then, by mistake, she kissed his lips, which led to a passionate kiss between them. However, she suddenly had to stop because her stomach started rumbling. She hadn't eaten all day. They both burst into laughter, and Mike lifted her up, carrying her to the kitchen. Later that night, Mike told Frank about the nice time he had with Rebecca. Frank laughed and told Mike that he knew he liked Rebecca, but was just pretending to be tough. The next day at the office, Rebecca was presenting a report on their work progress. While Mike kept watching her, Chief couldn't help but smile, knowing exactly what was going on. Back in Mike's office, he expressed how impressed he was with Rebecca's report. As they talked, things got intimate between them, and they started kissing. However, they quickly stopped when Chief walked in to announce that he was heading home. A few days later, Rebecca's landlord came to thank her for the provisions she had given him and his children. Just then, Mike arrived to see Rebecca. He greeted her landlord before following her into her room. Rebecca offered Mike a bottle of water. As he looked around, he asked how long she had been living there. After she answered, Mike told her that it was time for her to move somewhere better. Or, better still, come and stay with him. Rebecca was offended by his suggestion and immediately asked him to leave her house. That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep, and Mike kept calling her, but she refused to pick up. The next day, Rebecca showed up at Mike's house with her luggage, ready to stay with him. Later that night, while Mike was asleep, Rebecca sneaked into the bathroom to take her medication, but Mike woke up and went to check on her. She quickly hid the medication container in her nightwear before following him back to bed. It seems Rebecca is dealing with a serious illness that she doesn't want Mike or anyone else to know about. The next day, Rebecca and Mike went out for a walk. A few days later, Rebecca told Mike that she needed to go to her place to pick up some of her things. Mike offered to go with her, but she refused, assuring him she wouldn't take long. However, as she was leaving the compound, she sneezed and saw blood on her hand. Later that day, Chief visited Mike at home, and Mike told him that he was in a relationship with Rebecca. Then, laughing, Chief admitted that he had set Mike up with Rebecca. Mike couldn't believe it and laughed hard, amazed that his father never stopped trying to bring women his way. After Chief left, Frank came to see Mike. While they were talking, Mike received a call from someone using Rebecca's phone. The caller, who was listed as her emergency contact, informed him that Rebecca was in the hospital in critical condition. Without hesitation, Mike rushed to the hospital. What do you think is really going on with Rebecca? Should Mike have pushed her to move in with him, or was he overstepping? Let's talk about it. At the hospital, the doctor informed Mike about the complications in Rebecca's body that required surgery. However, when Mike told the doctor to proceed with the operation, she hesitated and explained that they couldn't perform the surgery because Rebecca was pregnant. The doctor then excused herself. Frank later came to ask Mike what was going on. Mike, looking troubled, told him that the situation was complicated and also revealed that Rebecca was pregnant with his child. The next day, Mike sat by Rebecca's bedside as she received treatment. He spoke to her unconscious body, expressing his fears and concerns. Suddenly, Rebecca regained consciousness. Mike gently told her that he knew about her condition, but that surgery was not an option because of her pregnancy. He also informed her that she had an 80-20 chance of survival. Upon hearing this, Rebecca started crying, but Mike assured her that everything would be all right. He then told her to rest while he went to call the doctor. A few days later, Mike, Frank, Chief, and Rebecca's landlord sat anxiously in the waiting room, waiting for news from the doctor. When the doctor finally came out, she announced that the surgery was successful. Everyone was overjoyed. Weeks later, Mike brought Rebecca home, where she was warmly welcomed by her colleagues, Top Frank, and others in a small celebration. They presented her with a cake and flowers, making Rebecca feel deeply appreciated and happy. The next day, Bolu brought Kimberly to see Mike, and she sincerely thanked Rebecca for making it possible. A few nights later, Mike proposed to Rebecca, and she joyfully accepted, becoming the happiest woman on earth. What started as a rivalry had now turned into a love story, as they were set to become husband and wife. The moral lesson of this movie is that sometimes love and understanding can come from the most unexpected places. True love is not just about romance, but also about patience, forgiveness, and standing by each other in difficult times. Life is unpredictable, but with faith, resilience, and kindness, challenges can turn into blessings. So that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us in this exciting episode. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell for more interesting and fascinating episodes like this. Till we meet again, goodbye.